Imagine this. You spend your whole life trying to be kind to everyone. You always say yes, always help, always forgive, always give people the benefit of the doubt. You think that if you keep doing good, others will appreciate you, respect you, and maybe even change for the better. But what happens instead? Some people take advantage of you. Some drain you emotionally, leaving you exhausted and empty. Others see your kindness as weakness and walk all over you. And one day you wake up and realize you are not being kind anymore. You are being used. The world has convinced us that kindness means always being available, always being agreeable, and never saying no. But real kindness is not about letting people take advantage of you. It is about wisdom, discernment, and knowing when to walk away. Even Jesus, the perfect example of love, was not always nice. He confronted, he rebuked, and he stood firm when necessary. So today I challenge you, stop being kind to everyone. Stop allowing your kindness to be exploited. Stop thinking that love means tolerating everything. Because the truth is, not everyone deserves your kindness, and not everyone will value it. Being kind is a virtue, but kindness without discernment is destructive. Many people believe that being kind to everyone, regardless of the situation, is the highest moral standard. They think that always saying yes, always being available, and always giving without question is the true definition of goodness. But this is a misunderstanding of kindness. When kindness is given without wisdom, it stops being a blessing and becomes a curse. It enables destructive behavior, allows evil to flourish, and can even lead to the downfall of the one who gives it. Imagine a person who gives money to a beggar every day. Out of kindness, they continue to give, never asking how the money is used. Over time, they realize that the beggar is using the money to buy drugs or alcohol. Their kindness, rather than helping, is actually feeding a destructive addiction. The giver thinks they are being good, but in reality, they are part of the problem. They are not rescuing the person, they are enabling their destruction. This is what happens when kindness is blind, when it is given without thought, when it is given without discernment. There are people in life who do not deserve constant kindness because they misuse it. Some take advantage of good-hearted individuals, manipulating them for personal gain. They see kindness as weakness and use it to their benefit. A person who always forgives, always helps, and always says yes becomes an easy target for those with selfish motives. This happens in friendships, relationships, workplaces, and even churches. A kind-hearted person may continue to give, thinking they are doing the right thing, but in the end, they become exhausted, drained, and sometimes even broken. They realize too late that their kindness was misplaced. Jesus himself was kind, but he was not always nice. He was full of love, but he was also full of truth. When he encountered the Pharisees, he did not speak gently to them. He did not offer them kind words in the face of their hypocrisy. He rebuked them. He called them a brood of vipers. He did not tolerate their deception and false teachings just to be polite. He confronted them with boldness, because kindness without truth is empty. When he entered the temple and saw people turning his father's house into a marketplace. He did not smile and ask them to stop. He overturned the tables. He drove them out. He showed that true righteousness is not passive. It does not allow evil to operate freely under the cover of politeness. People who are too kind to everyone often suffer in silence. They allow toxic relationships to continue because they do not want to hurt feelings. They endure mistreatment because they do not want to seem unkind. They continue to say yes when they should be saying no. But this is not how God wants His people to live. There is a time to be compassionate, but there is also a time to set boundaries. There is a time to give, but there is also a time to withhold. There is a time to extend grace, but there is also a time to correct. True kindness is not just about being good to people. It is about knowing when goodness requires saying no, walking away, or standing firm. A person who learns to balance kindness with wisdom becomes stronger, healthier, and more effective in life. They still love people, but they do not allow themselves to be used. They still help others, but they do not let their generosity be exploited. They still forgive, but they do not let toxic individuals keep harming them. They understand that kindness must be given with discernment, because when it is not, it ceases to be kindness and becomes a tool for destruction. Jesus was the perfect embodiment of love, mercy, and grace, yet He was not always nice. The modern idea of Jesus as a gentle, soft-spoken man who never offended anyone is an incomplete and misleading image. While He was full of compassion, He was also full of boldness and truth. He did not hesitate to rebuke, correct, and even confront people when necessary. His love was not a weak, passive tolerance of all things, but an active passion for righteousness. Many today believe that being Christ-like means always being agreeable, always being accommodating, and always being gentle in speech. But when we look at the life of Jesus, we see a man who was not afraid to disrupt, to challenge, and to expose falsehood. One of the clearest examples of Jesus not being nice was His interaction with the Pharisees. The Pharisees were religious leaders who appeared righteous on the outside but were corrupt in their hearts. They loved to display their piety in public while oppressing the weak and twisting God's laws for their own benefit. When Jesus spoke to them, He did not flatter them or try to keep the peace. He called them hypocrites, blind guides, and even a brood of vipers. He exposed their deception and publicly rebuked them, warning people not to follow their example. This was not the response of someone who was trying to be overly kind or avoid conflict. Jesus did not concern Himself with pleasing them or making them comfortable. He was not interested in being polite at the expense of truth. He spoke with authority, and His words cut through their hypocrisy like a sword. Another moment that reveals Jesus' boldness was when He cleansed the temple. The temple was meant to be a house of prayer, but corrupt merchants had turned it into a marketplace. They were exploiting people in the name of religion, using God's house for personal profit. Jesus did not walk in and ask them nicely to leave. He did not negotiate with them or try to gently persuade them. He made a whip, flipped over their tables, and drove them out with righteous anger. This was an act of confrontation, of strength, of divine justice. It was not a display of passive kindness. It was a demonstration that true love does not tolerate evil. Jesus was also direct and uncompromising in his personal interactions. When a rich young ruler came to him seeking eternal life, Jesus did not simply say, "Follow me and all will be well." He told the man to sell all he had, give to the poor, and then follow him. This was a hard truth, and the man walked away sorrowful because he was unwilling to let go of his wealth. Jesus did not chase after him, begging him to reconsider. He did not soften his message to make it more appealing. He spoke the truth and allowed the man to make his choice. This is the nature of real love. There are people who only come around when they need something. They are always asking for help, always needing a favor, always expecting support, but they never give anything in return. They drain others emotionally, financially, and mentally. If someone continues to show kindness without limits, these individuals will take and take without ever stopping. Instead of being grateful, they become entitled. Instead of valuing kindness, they abuse it. At some point, kindness must turn into wisdom. And wisdom requires setting boundaries. A person must learn to say no, to limit their availability, and to recognize when someone is using them rather than truly valuing them. Toxic people do not need kindness. They need distance. There are individuals who bring nothing but negativity, drama, and destruction into the lives of others. They manipulate, they lie, they gossip, and they create confusion. Showing kindness to such people only encourages their behavior. Some believe that continuing to be kind will eventually change them. But this is rarely the case. A person who is toxic does not change because of kindness. They change only when they are held accountable or when they face the consequences of their actions. Being overly kind to them allows them to continue their toxic behavior without any reason to stop. The best way to deal with them is to set strong boundaries or completely remove them from one's life. Even in relationships, there are times when kindness must be limited. Some people remain in abusive or one-sided relationships because they believe they must always be kind and forgiving. They tolerate disrespect, dishonesty, and even emotional or physical harm because they do not want to be seen as unkind. But kindness should never come at the cost of one's dignity, self-respect, or well-being. A person who truly loves themselves and values their worth will not allow someone else to mistreat them continuously. Love does not mean accepting all behavior. Real love has limits, and real kindness does not enable abuse. There are also times when people must be confronted instead of comforted. Some individuals need correction, not compassion. If a person constantly makes poor choices and refuses to take responsibility, continuing to show them kindness without accountability only reinforces their bad behavior. Sometimes the most loving thing to do is to set a firm boundary and allow them to face the reality of their actions. Growth and change often come not from comfort, but from correction. You are not called to be a doormat. Many people misunderstand what it means to be loving, believing that it requires them to endure mistreatment, tolerate disrespect, and always say yes to others. But true love is not weakness, it is strength, guided by wisdom. There is a difference between being loving and being passive, between being kind and allowing yourself to be walked over. A person who always puts others ahead of themselves without considering their own needs will eventually find themselves exhausted, unfulfilled, and even broken. Some people take advantage of kindness. They see a gentle and giving person as someone they can manipulate for their own gain. They push limits, cross boundaries, and demand more and more without giving anything in return. When someone continues to allow this, thinking they are being good and righteous, they are actually enabling selfish and destructive behavior. If a person never stands up for themselves, they are not practicing love. They are allowing themselves to be used. The Bible calls people to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. This means that while a person should remain kind, they should also be discerning. They should recognize when someone is taking advantage of them and know when to say no. Jesus himself was not a doormat. He did not allow people to manipulate him or push him beyond what was right. When religious leaders tried to trap him with tricky questions, he answered with wisdom and authority, exposing their hypocrisy. When crowds demanded that he become an earthly king, he refused because he knew his purpose. When people in his hometown rejected him, he did not beg them to accept him. He moved on. Jesus knew his worth, his purpose, and his limits. He was loving, but he was also firm. A person who allows themselves to be treated poorly in the name of love is not truly loving. They are afraid of conflict, fear of upsetting others, fear of rejection, and fear of appearing unkind keep many people trapped in unhealthy relationships and toxic situations. But love is not the absence of conflict. Love sometimes requires difficult conversations, standing firm, and even walking away. If a person is in a relationship where they are constantly giving but receiving nothing, always apologizing but never being apologized to, always sacrificing but never being appreciated, they must recognize that this is not love. It is one-sided servitude. True love is mutual. It is built on respect and honor. In workplaces, friendships, and even family relationships, there are times when people will try to overstep boundaries, take advantage of generosity, or demand more than what is fair. It is not wrong to stand up for oneself. It is not unkind to set limits. People often feel guilty for saying no, for walking away, or for demanding better treatment. But these are necessary actions for a healthy and fulfilling life. A person cannot pour from an empty cup. If they continue to give endlessly without ever receiving, they will burn out. Many believe that being a good person means always putting others first, but this is not sustainable. Even Jesus took time away from people to pray, rest, and be alone. He did not allow the needs and demands of others to overwhelm him. He had a mission, and he stayed focused on it. Every person has a purpose, and they cannot fulfill it if they allow themselves to be drained by those who only take. Setting boundaries, standing up for oneself, and knowing when to walk away are not acts of selfishness. They are acts of wisdom. A person who respects themselves teaches others to respect them. Love is powerful, but it is not weak. It requires strength, discernment, and the ability to say enough when necessary. Kingdom-minded boldness is far more important than people-pleasing. Many individuals live their lives trying to make everyone around them happy, afraid of disappointing others, and constantly seeking approval. They believe that being a good person means saying yes to every request, avoiding conflict at all costs, and always keeping the peace. But this kind of living leads to compromise, exhaustion, and spiritual weakness. A person who is always trying to please people will eventually find themselves trapped in a cycle of saying what others want to hear rather than what is true. The problem with people-pleasing is that it places human opinions above God's truth. When someone is focused on making others happy, they will avoid speaking hard truths. They will hesitate to stand up for what is right, and they will allow themselves to be swayed by the pressure of those around them. They become afraid of rejection, afraid of criticism, and afraid of being disliked. But the truth is, no matter how much a person tries to please people, there will always be someone who disapproves. Living for the approval of others is a never-ending pursuit that only leads to disappointment and frustration. Jesus never sought the approval of people. He sought to do the will of his Father. He was bold in his message, even when it offended others. He spoke truth without watering it down, even when it made people angry. He did not try to fit in with religious leaders, nor did he change his message to make it more acceptable. When people walked away because they did not like what he said, he did not chase after them to try to win them back. He remained focused on his mission, and he never compromised for the sake of human approval. A person who chooses to be bold in their faith will face opposition. Some will mock them, others will misunderstand them, and some will even turn against them. But trying to avoid conflict by always being agreeable is not the way of the kingdom. The kingdom of God advances through courage, not compromise. Those who make a real impact are the ones who stand firm, who speak truth even when it is unpopular, and who refuse to bow to pressure. It is not arrogance. It is confidence in what is right. Fear of what others think is one of the greatest traps that keeps people from fulfilling their purpose. When someone is too concerned about offending others, they hold back their convictions. They hesitate to speak out against injustice. They remain silent when they should take a stand. But boldness is not about being harsh or rude. It is about being unwavering in truth. It is about loving people enough to tell them what they need to hear, not just what they want to hear. When a person chooses boldness over people-pleasing, they walk in true freedom. They are no longer controlled by opinions, and they live with purpose, knowing they are doing what truly matters. True kindness is not about pleasing everyone, tolerating all behavior, or allowing yourself to be used. It is about wisdom, discernment, and the courage to set boundaries. There are moments when kindness requires saying no, walking away, or standing firm in truth. Jesus himself was not always nice. He was loving, but he was also bold. He did not allow himself to be manipulated, nor did he compromise his mission to gain approval. Some people do not need more kindness, they need correction. Others do not deserve endless patience, they need accountability. Being kind to everyone without limits does not make you righteous. It makes you vulnerable to those who take advantage. Your purpose is too important to waste on those who drain you, disrespect you, or keep you from growing. Love people, but do not let them walk over you. Forgive, but do not allow repeated harm. Give, but do not be exploited. Stop living for the approval of others and start living with strength and purpose. Stand firm in truth, set boundaries, and walk with confidence. When you stop being kind to everyone without wisdom, you will find real freedom, real joy, and real peace. Good luck on your journey of strength, discernment, and boldness. May you walk in wisdom, stand firm in truth, and never allow kindness to be mistaken for weakness. Thank you, and may you be blessed in all you do.